Mr. President.
The senator from Missouri is recognized.
I thank the President for recognizing me. I'm glad to be here to talk as we discuss what we should be talking about, how to get more people back to work. There are a lot of different approaches on how we get there, but I hope we can reach the decision that we need to do the things in government that allow private individuals to make the decisions they make to create jobs. You know, our federal debt has reached, of course, a record high, and it continues to grow every day. National unemployment's lingering around 9%. Home prices have plummeted in almost every community in America. Gas prices and health care costs have skyrocketed. The gas prices, the health care cost, on the energy issue that my friend from Vermont was talking about, the shortest path to more American jobs is more American energy. And I'm not opposed to any of the green jobs he was talking about. I'd like to see this have all of those jobs if they can eventually be a competitive part of an energy environment, and I think they can. But I think we should also focus on the jobs that power America today. Even if we knew what the country was going to look like energy-wise 30 years from now, it would take a long time to get there. And I'm for more American energy jobs of all kinds. For 50 years, we haven't met the marketplace need with what we could produce. But the marketplace need is always there. It's always there in a bad economy. It's always there in a good economy. Let's meet that need. And certainly that can mean more solar and more wind and more biofuels and more everything else we can think. Mr. President, also needs to mean more shale gas and more shale oil, more using the fossil fuel deposits like coal that we have as we move toward a different energy future, and to do that in a way that allows us to continue to be competitive. You know, if our utility bill doubles in the middle of the country where the President of the Senate today and I are from, we're not as competitive as we are. And I don't think we lose the jobs we lose to Massachusetts or California. I think we lose those jobs to places that care a whole lot less about what comes out of the smokestack than we do. At the same time, jump-starting our economy will require bipartisanship. And if we're going to compete in a global economy and help create economic opportunities, we have to be willing to work together. This week, we saw a long-awaited but still a real example of that kind of bipartisanship when President Obama submitted the 3 pending trade agreements. Now, they've been pending for 3 years, and we've lost opportunities in those markets for 3 years. But in fairness to the President, for at least the first 2 of those 3 years, the House of Representatives wouldn't have passed these agreements. But they would pass them now, and they will pass them now, and so will the Senate. I'm hopeful as early as next week, and that creates opportunities in Missouri, where I'm from, and across the country. I've worked closely with our colleagues. Senator Portman and I put a letter together of Republicans who told the White House we're willing to work on the trade adjustment assistance as part of the package, if that's what it takes to get these trade agreements sent to the Capitol. And we did, and those trade adjustment agreements have now passed the Senate and are ready to move forward with us. These free trade agreements would mean an additional $2.5 to $3 billion in agricultural exports every year. Every $1 billion of agricultural exports is an estimated 8,000 new jobs. These are the places where we can get the jobs. Trade, travel, tourism, energy. This is not that complicated a formula, but the government can't continue to stand in the way of all those things moving forward. In Missouri, exports accounted for 5.4% of our gross domestic product in 2008. Companies in our state sold products in nearly 200 foreign markets. Since 2002, exports have increased 3 times faster than the rest of our economy, and that's one state in the middle of the country working to be competitive in the world. The passage of these trade agreements will increase trade for soybeans, for beef, for corn, for pork, for dairy products, for processed food, for fish, all of which we produce in our state, plus all kinds of manufactured products that in South Korea, in Colombia, and in Panama, given the choice of 2 products on the shelf, the American product is still a product that consumers in those countries will choose, even with some disadvantage. Imagine what will happen when we eliminate more of that disadvantage. Now, this week, the bill on the floor, I think this bill that concerns me about managing China currency, but only if the president doesn't disagree with what the Congress has passed, has much greater potential to start a trade war than it does to solve any given problem. Now, I'm not here, Mr. President, to defend the Chinese or its leaders or its trade practices. In fact, one of those practices where you make a product in China and there's already a finding that that product somehow unfairly being imported or exported in the WTO agreements, and so you put another label on it that says it's from somewhere else, sometimes called transshipment. Senator Wyden and I have a bill, the Enforce Act, that would deal with that, and it deals with that specifically, directly, and actually will produce a result, and I look forward to that bill being on the floor. I'm proud to co-sponsor Senator Hatch's alternative to the bill that's on the floor this week, that in fact is multilateral. It involves other countries plus the WTO plus the IMF in a discussion that might actually produce a real result of what the various countries of the world, including China, are doing as they manage their currency in ways that may not be found to be fair in the foreign marketplace. But we need results. We just don't need legislation to talk about for purposes that use up time when we've got so many important things we could be doing. I've co-sponsored the Affordable Footwear Act with Senator Cantwell. That'll ease the tax burden on American consumers who unknowingly pay up to 40% duties on retail costs that cover this import duty or the shoe tax on shoes made outside the United States. All these bills represent ways we can level the playing field for American workers, for American job creators, and spur economic growth right here at home. Another topic that we should be focused on is federal regulation, and regulation that just simply doesn't make sense. I've met lots of job creators in Missouri even this year and certainly in past years, but this year more than any other, they want to talk about the regulators. They want to talk about the air rules, the utility MAC rule, the cross-state air pollution rule that could cause as much as 15% of our coal-producing energy plants to shut down. Now, when they shut down, that means the price goes up. And I know that it's a philosophy of many in the current administration that our problem is that our energy isn't expensive enough. But I don't find any Missouri families that are sitting down at the kitchen table looking at their utility bill and saying the problem here is this bill just isn't high enough. What we really need to do to solve our energy problem is raise this, but nobody is saying that, even though the cap and trade legislation that passed the House in 2009 would have doubled the utility bill in Missouri in about 12 years. A lot of things work at today's utility bill that don't work later. Under the new EPA regulations on cross-state air pollution, the Ameren Electric Company announced that they'll be forced to close 2 of their coal-fired plants by the end of this year. Not modify, not redo, just close. The only thing that makes sense is to close those plants, and the people that get the utility bill will know those plants are closed because they are going to be paying a higher price. Electric rates could rise 20% in some areas by just in a very short time. Fugitive dust, there's actually a rule that the EPA is talking about where farmers can't let dust from their farm go to another farm. Well, I was raised on farms and around farms, and you can't farm without dust. You can't harvest a crop without dust. You cannot farm in the mud. You can't contain the dust that is part of farming. And it's the kind of rule that just simply doesn't make sense. There's a rule on boilers that would impact universities and hospitals as well as sawmills and other facilities that generate their energy from industrial boilers. There's a cement regulation. We're not going to have the kind of recovery we want in this country without a recovery in housing. And the House recently passed a bill that would require the administration to evaluate the economic toll of the new EPA rules on cement and other industries. The House also is set to take up a bill that would delay the cement rules for at least 5 years. You're not going to have a construction industry if you don't have access to products that make sense to build things out of. I've said for some time that we ought to have a moratorium on all these regulations, and in fact, I'm co-sponsoring Senator Collins' bill to call a timeout on new major regulations and give employers the certainty that they need to create new jobs in an environment that they understand what it's going to be like as those jobs have a chance to become permanent jobs. This is an easy solution to help job creators. But instead, we're talking about the jobs bill. And the president's, almost all his speeches on the jobs bill are in politically competitive states. I'm wondering if that's not a 2012 political strategy instead of a 2011 legislative strategy. There are 1.7 million fewer American jobs since the president signed the first stimulus bill into law. We don't need stimulus 2. We need to do the things that encourage private sector job creators to create private sector jobs. Let's vote on the bill. Instead of this debate we're having this week on China currency, let's vote on the president's bill. He said in, I think, Dallas on Tuesday at late morning in Dallas, let the Senate at least vote on the bill. And so the minority leader, Mr. McConnell, came to the floor and said, let's vote on the bill, and we're ready on our side. Let's vote on the bill. Let's get beyond the pass the bill. Let's see if the votes are there to pass the bill so we can get to the things that really will get the country going again. These regulations, this talk of higher utility bills and higher taxes puts a big wet blanket on the entire economy. This discussion of who we're going to be puts a big wet blanket on the entire economy. Let's take that blanket off. Let's do the things at the government level that allow private job creators to do what they can to create private sector jobs. I hope we can get on with the business that the country needs to get done. And President, I believe there's the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.